Let's bring the man in right now. Monday morning, you can catch him on every morning show at Sports Book Review. Betting with the Bag. Please welcome to the show direct from Las Vegas, my man, your man, Teddy Covers in the house. Teddy, how are you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm doing all right, Jimmy. How about yourself, man? Wasn't a great weekend by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't a disaster either. I'll take it, but I'm a little frustrated on Monday. It was a big weekend for the bettors, bad weekend for the books, and usually when the books do bad, it's not one of my better weekends.
Well, what happened for me in college football was I only made 3 bets. My plan was to only make 3 bets. I got to say that was my plan. Let me go over to it right now. And it was nice. I was on 3 spots. I was on Texas +7, App State -15, and Oklahoma -10.5. That was all I was going to do. And then I got an email from my father asking me to put $150 on UCLA +21.5. As soon as my dad said that, I should have called you and told you to hedge your bet and take Utah. Instead, I thought Teddy's on UCLA, my dad's on UCLA, so I went in with them. So I had 150 was his cash on UCLA. And it was 14-3 with 2.5 minutes left, and UCLA was in the red zone. And then everything fell apart for me. And I was also on Colorado State +11. And right about at the same time, 3rd and goal, Colorado State threw a pick 6 to hurt me on both. So I ended up going 2-3. But man, Teddy, as soon as I found out my dad was on UCLA, I should have called you right away. Instead, I went with you guys. And so I ended up 2-3. How did you think? What was your takeaways from this past week in NCAA football?
Oh, there's a ton. But first, I have to say, you were the one that told me that when your dad calls, you bet the other way and you fade it.
I know.
You made it real clear. You're like, my dad is not a guy I want to be on the same side with, ever. Yeah, and unfortunately, what we saw in the UCLA game was the danger of that spot for the Bruins. They were in the game and then they weren't. And on the road, in the cold, it was certainly not their best showing. We'll put it that way. I mean, takeaways, I got a million takeaways from the weekend. Let's see. I didn't enjoy Minnesota's missed extra point. That was a pretty big takeaway for me for the weekend. The Gophers were not a right side. They fought tooth and nail to get back in that game. They scored the touchdown, and they missed the extra point, which was a little bit frustrating to lose by 4, to put it mildly. I mean, where do I got so many notes from last weekend? Indiana against Penn State was a game that really stood out to me. The Hoosiers took punches in that game, and they punched back, and that's something, that character that we talk about doesn't show up in box scores. It'll show up in box scores in a way, but if you're not watching the teams, you're not going to get that sense. And I watched Indiana at Michigan State, was it late September, early October, and they got punched and they punched back. And that was a big part of the reason why I liked the Hoosiers last week. They got punched against Penn State and they punched back. And those type of nuances, something you learn about a team in September and October, it's the time of year you can make money with that stuff. There'll be a number of opportunities like that over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was a very interesting weekend, and we're really seeing who these teams are, and I feel like I'm going to go with less quantity like I did last time, but I should have just left it at 2-1. Man, what a mistake. Okay, we have questions rolling in, Teddy, but first off, before we get into, because I just needed you to know about the UCLA, we've just broken down this whole NBA card, and there are a couple looks that I like, and I can't wait to hear what you are on this NBA card. Then we'll move into Monday Night Football. Then we'll break down NCAA football a little more. What is your move in NBA tonight?
I made one play, only one bet in the NBA for tonight, and it's as easy as it gets. Knicks can't be laying. End of write-up. I took the Cavs +3. And I know the Cavs went into Madison Square Garden and won by 21 last week, and it was all hell broke loose in New York afterwards, and now they get a chance at short turnaround revenge, all that. I know Cleveland's on the second of back-to-backs. I don't care. The Knicks cannot be laying. The fact the Cavs beat them by 21 last week, the Cavs might beat them by 21 again tonight. And I love, you see the quotes at a Bayline and the Cavs after, they had a no-show what was it, on Friday, and then a no-show on Sunday. This is a game where the Cavs I expect to show up. Cleveland +3 is in my pocket. Cleveland on the money line is in my pocket. That's all I play.
I want to make a move on Oklahoma City Thunder first quarter, first half, and the under with Kawhi and Paul George playing together for the first time. There's no rush. Money's coming in on the over, and money's coming in on the Clippers. What do you think of fading this Clippers team early with the two on the court at the same time for the first time all year?
I certainly wouldn't talk you out of it. It's not on my radar. It's not something that I was looking to do. Clips aren't a team I'm going to rush to step in front of in general right now. But in these type of games where you have the former players coming back, Gallinari and Gilgeous-Alexander and all of that coming back to the Staples Center, I wouldn't be surprised to see OKC come out with fire. Makes a whole lot of sense. Wouldn't even think about talking you out of that, Jimmy. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm getting +3 right now, first quarter, +6 first half, and I think I might even get better as the day goes on. So I'm going to just sit back and keep an eye on the market before I pull the trigger on anything. Then Celtics Suns. I'm taking the Celtics first quarter on the money line, and I'm taking the Suns full game -3.5. What's your prediction of the Celtics on the second half of a back-to-back after losing their winning streak and going into Phoenix?
So this was a hard game for me. If I was going to play, I could only take Boston. All right, I really could. And if you watch the Celtics against the Kings last night, the Kings game with great energy in the fourth quarter. They made a couple of plays down the stretch. The Celtics had Marcus Smart had a shot that hung on the rim for an eternity, and they lost the game, which snaps a winning streak. And in general, the team that has their winning streak snapped, you don't want on the second of back-to-backs on the road the next day. All that said, boy, the quote's coming out of and this point spread is saying that this is a point spread that says Boston is equal to Phoenix on the second of back-to-backs. These two teams are power rated evenly. I don't have them power rated evenly. I don't have the Celtics only 1 point better than the Suns. Boston's good. So I guess of the two bets, I would prefer Boston first quarter / first half and Phoenix full game. Going to be fun with Baines against his former teammates. Everyone was talking about it prior to the, immediately after the game yesterday. Celtics are coming tonight. I wouldn't be in a rush to step in front of Boston.
Interesting. I love it. Thank you for your insights there. And now let's move to the Monday nighter, Azteca Stadium, Mexico City, Chargers, Chiefs. Let's see what's going on with this market move quickly. And Chargers, 5-point favorites. Still 4.5 at Pinnacle, in Heritage, 5 everywhere else, 5.5 at Bovada. And this total opened at 53, is back at 53. Although Pinnacle and a couple other books are sitting at 52.5. So it's either 53 or 52.5. Chiefs, Chargers, how are you handling this one?
So the only way I can play it is Kansas City, and tonight's not a night I can play Kansas City. Let me make this real clear. The books took a beating yesterday. Saturday wasn't much better. It was the worst week of the year for the books. All right. The liability going into Monday night is significant. There's a public favorite on Monday night. Chiefs are the public favorite, very clearly. Chiefs and over. And the books just took a beating from the public all weekend. I'm not someone that's going to talk contrarian. You got to play contrarian. All no. But there are spots and there are times where you have to pay attention to this. And this is a spot and a time that you have to pay attention to this. The public money's on KC. The public destroyed the books all weekend. This might not be the night for a public favorite. I'll just leave it at that. So there's a case to be made for the Chargers here from a pure contrarian perspective. On a week like this, where there's significant liability for the books on Monday night, this is a spot where I do take the public into account. Doesn't happen often. This is one of those games where the books got wiped. I mean, they got pounded yesterday. Oh, the Lions going for 2 and not making it was a very bad result here in Las Vegas. I'll just put it at that. The Saints winning was a very bad result for the house. The Ravens winning was a bad result for the house. There was another huge one that I'm just falling asleep on right here. But, there was the Patriots, of course, beating the Eagles like that. these weren't, and the Patriots and the Cowboys were both as bad as any games that the books have had all year. And they're going to be facing the ridiculous liability on Monday night. So just be aware. So I guess I start with Chargers or pass from that point of view. And that leaves me with the pass because the Chargers aren't any good. We know the Chargers are any good. The Chiefs are loaded. The Chiefs are good. And the Chiefs are hungry, and the Chiefs have been in this Mexico City experience last year. Lots of things pointing towards Kansas City. And the biggest thing for me is I don't trust the Chargers. Don't think that team's very good on offense. Don't think that team's very good on defense. Phillip Rivers was lost last week. I wouldn't be surprised if he's lost again this week. All that said, if I got to make a bet, it'd be the Chargers. Pass for me.
What do you think about trying to get under the Chiefs team total at 30?
I mean, I'm not in love with it. I'm not looking to force action, okay? And 30 is pretty high, though, isn't it? How many games have the Chiefs not scored 30, though?
But the Chargers are the type of team that can keep the Chiefs off the field with their running game and with Melvin Gordon looking like he's, in a perfect spot right now. That's my only thinking is if I was coaching, if I was Lynn, I would be like, man, we got to run, and get this clock moving. First downs, move the chains, tire them out, keep the offense off the field. But that's easier said than done. It was just the first thing that jumped out at me just from a coaching perspective that I would do whatever I could to get, have the ball for 38 minutes of this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you remember the last time these two teams played, they played last December. And the Chargers stole that game. In the last, 5 minutes, they rallied from, I think, 3 scores down to beat Kansas City and won it right at the end. Chiefs only had 28 in that contest. That's been the exception rather than the rule in recent meetings against the Chargers. I'm not in love with taking a Chiefs. I mean, it's a hard game, Jimmy. I don't want to bet against the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs can do anything they want to. All right, offensively, they're sick. Okay, this is as good as offense as you're going to find. And Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And I think it, and I'll say it. So that's not a team, and I don't trust the Chargers defense. So I don't love it. But I wouldn't. But again, at 30, there's leeway there. Yeah, that's a pretty high team total. I don't know, Jimmy. It's not a game I got a great feel for.
Oh, Cuban Connect says Melvin Gordon rush yards is the spot. That's a great call, Cuban Connect. Oh, it's a great call. So how do you think this elevation in Mexico City is going to affect the game? At what, if you were looking from a props market or from how would you handle the elevation? What are we, 7,000 feet up in the air? How does that change the gameplay?
See, I never see this in the regular. Do you ever see second half to be higher scoring than the first half in the regular season? I see that for the Super Bowl. I don't recall seeing that a lot. That's one I'd look for. You expect the defenses to wear down after halftime. When you're talking about playing in altitude, the energy's there early, and it's more difficult to re-oxygenate your blood cells over the back half of the game. Players get gas late, defenses get gas late. Second halves tend to be higher scoring. Maybe look at a second half over. That's
interesting. That's a very interesting breakdown. Dustin H. Melvin Gordon over 81 rush yards, plus 100. That's a lot of rush yards, man. Ski Prop says neither team can stop what the other team wants to do. Sean Glass says Chiefs under. Brant Hunt says both teams will get tired faster, so the game goes over. We'll talk more about this game on the Late Show as well. Okay, Teddy Covers, let's move over to NCAA football. Where have you got to the window on any action so far this week?
Oh, yeah. I got involved last night / this morning with a handful of plays, 5 of them, and I'm waiting on 3 numbers. I missed one number, and I'm pissed about it. But let's start with some action for tomorrow night. I took Eastern Michigan plus 4.5 at Northern Illinois. This is a field goal game. This isn't a late 4.5 game. I'm not a huge fan of the Huskies, and I love Eastern and that road dog roll. That's what they do. They hang around in these games. I didn't know the 4.5 would be there. I grabbed the Eastern Michigan Eagles, betting number 103 plus 4.5. I took East Carolina, betting number 131, minus 13.5 at UConn. They beat them by, I think, 6 touchdowns last year. They're coming off a bye. They played much better. They just played the top 2 teams in the conferences before the bye and took them both to the wire and lost. This is a blowout spot for East Carolina, betting number 131, minus 13.5. That number, too, I think is still widely available right now. Widely available. Illinois, betting number, you guys knew I was going back to the window with the Illini. Plus 14. I got a plus 14 at Iowa. Iowa played as good as they can play against Minnesota, and they were a missed extra point away from pushing or failing to cover at the end. We saw the Frosch running back come in and make some plays. The defense played really well. Huge win, all that. Now they got to lay doubles against an Illinois team that nobody respects. Nuh-uh. Give me the Illini plus 14. That's betting number 143. I played Texas again as a dog. I mean, and this line absolutely baffled me. I got a plus 5.5 with Texas at Baylor. Baylor's coming off their first loss of the year, a game that they had and let go. Whatever. We all watched it on Saturday night. I don't know how well Baylor bounces back from that. And Herman is a dog, cashed again this last Saturday. I thought the 5.5 was a bargain. There's a 6 out there now. I'm kind of kicking myself for missing it. And last but not least, betting number 199. Oh, that one's gone. Yeah, I had to go. I took San Jose minus 4.5. I got that this morning. That's gone already. That's 6s now. 199, San Jose minus 4.5 at UNLV. It's Tony Sanchez's last home game. I expect the Rebels will draw about 10,000 fans, and no one will care that Sanchez will be fired. If he's not fired after the game, he'll be fired after the next one. This is a San Jose spot. I thought that line was really cheap at 4.5. And obviously, even at 6, I'm not going to talk you out of it. That's been bet up in the last half hour, 45 minutes, and deservedly so, in my opinion. So that's 5 that I bet: Eastern Michigan, East Carolina, Illinois, Texas, San Jose State. 2 favorites, 3 dogs, all road teams so far.
I like it. I like it a lot. And it goes into one of my questions that I'll ask you very, very soon. But also, what are the ones that you are waiting for a number on?
So I missed a 14 with Memphis. Betting number 119, Memphis. They are at South Florida. It's 14.5. I didn't play it at 14.5, and I'll see if it comes back down to 14. There's been South Florida money the last couple of weeks. South Florida covered against Cincinnati. Cincinnati didn't play well, and if you watch the second half of that game, Cincinnati did kind of whatever they wanted to against the USF defense. I don't think you had. But anyhow, I missed the 14. I'm going to hold and see if it comes back. If not, I may not play it. But Memphis at 14. Betting number 163, the Wolfpack, Nevada. They're sitting at 13.5 right now. I'm going to wait for a 14 there. I think I'll get to the window with Nevada at 14. I'm not a Fresno believer. We said it last week. We cashed a ticket with San Diego State over the weekend. Was that Friday night? And Nevada's shown life down the stretch. And Fresno's not a team I want to lay 2 touchdowns with. So I'm waiting on that. I think I'll see a 14 in that game with Nevada. And I probably should have pulled the trigger on Marshall at 6.5. That's going to 7. I'll probably do that after the show, but I'm a little bit worried about the spot for the Thundering Herd. I am. They're coming off a huge win against a team that wasn't themselves, and it was a national TV win, and now they're going and laying on the road against. And I feel like they should throttle this team. I feel like Marshall's a lot better than Charlotte, but I'm a little bit worried about the spot. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I may. Like I said, the number's moving to 7. So if I'm going to pull the trigger, it'll be this morning, I would think. But I haven't done it yet.
There it is. Those are the ones that he's close to: Memphis, Nevada, and Marshall. We have questions coming in, Teddy, and why not start with the 8th overall pick in the 1999 NFL Draft? David Boston in our chat right now says, what up, guys? Our guys down here in Houston are all over the Hoosiers plus 8.5 and the Longhorns plus 5.5. You already let us know that you are backing the Longhorns. What do you think about this spot here, Indiana, Michigan, Indiana at plus 8.5?
I don't know. Part of me thinks that Michigan is not a team I want to stand in front of. Remember when Michigan lost to Wisconsin and the chat was going crazy? And I was like, Michigan will be fine. Bet them this week. Like Michigan, I think they've covered 5 out of 6 since that loss to the Badgers. And they've been throttling teams. And Indiana, they fought tooth and nail last week. I like Indiana in general, catching more than a touchdown because that team does fight to the closing gun. But there's a pretty big defensive disparity between the Wolverines and the Hoosiers. I don't know what to do with the game. It's not anything that I had an initial lean on. We'll do some work on it during the week and see if something pops out.
All right. It is a big game we will be talking about throughout the week. We have a lot of questions coming in, and I'm copying, pasting as much as possible. Let's go to our guy, Arthur Mead Jr. And you've already made a move on Illinois. And so, Arthur Mead, we already know what our Teddy Covers thinks of the Illinois-Iowa spot. And Arthur on the same side, liking Illinois and the points. And Trey Hicks wants to know about Minnesota Northwestern. And you did talk briefly about it, but you haven't got to the window with Minnesota or either side on this game. What are you thinking about rotation number 149, 150, Minnesota Northwestern? Minnesota opening up at 12.5 now, 13 and 13.5 on the board.
I'm probably not going to play the game. I certainly don't think that Northwestern is fixed because of UMass over the weekend. If you watch that game, and I did, I couldn't help myself. And of course, it landed right, 38, 38.5, 39, 39.5, 40, and it lands right on 39. That wasn't a good result for the books at all in that contest. A lot of bettors. Whichever side you had in that game, you were supposed to cash. I'll just leave it at that. But that doesn't make me think that Northwestern is fixed, and I'm not excited about getting the window with Northwestern in this game. But I don't know how the Gopher is going to react to that loss. I didn't get a sense that I wanted to lay double digits on the road with Minnesota this next week. They didn't play well at Iowa. It was as poorly as they played all year. They played a heck of a second half to get back into the game, and then, kicker problems. I don't trust the Gophers to lay this price, and I don't trust Northwestern to hang with anyone. It's probably going to be a pass for me.
Probably going to be a pass. We have questions coming in. The next is from Eddie Euler. Eddie Euler wanting to know about this spot rotation number 115, 116, Nebraska, Maryland. Nebraska opening up at -5, now -4s across the board. Any early feel on Nebraska, Maryland?
Yeah, that line kind of stood out a little bit, didn't it? That's one that stood out to me last night as well. I think my number was much shorter. I had Nebraska as chalk, but I sure as heck didn't have them as 5-point chalk. You know that betting number offhand?
115, 116?
Oh, I'm looking in the wrong place. Sorry, 115. No, my number was 4.5. And I thought I'm like, wow, Nebraska 4.5, and then the market came out 5 and then got bet down to 4. I know I won't be laying on the road with Nebraska, okay? Although at some point the Huskers will cover a point spread, right? The only team worse ATS this year is Akron. And that's, you don't want to be in the same sentence as Akron for anything when it comes to college football. Nebraska's in that same sentence. Obviously, it's a line that looks at first glance as a head scratcher. That said, do you want to, before I go against Nebraska, I want to see something from Maryland that says we're interested. Remember that Loxley got him going. That didn't last through September. It's been a pretty ugly run for the Terrapins the last couple of months since that hot start. Or they 2-0 when things went south. It didn't take long. I could only take Maryland. I shouldn't say that. I'm not likely to play the game. And this is another one where I want to see what Nebraska's saying, and I want to see what Maryland's saying. This is a place where player quotes could come into could definitely factor in the equation for me. Neither team necessarily in a great spot here. And if you find a team that's coming to play when neither team's in a great spot here, you can make money in these type of spots.
Stelio wants to know about Oregon State, and we've already heard our Matt Randall liking Oregon State. Here, rotation number 169, 170. Washington State opening up as 12.5-point favorites. It's now down to 12 at most books. Oregon State, Washington State.
Yeah, my number was 13.5. And Washington State's performance this past weekend, and again, coming against a lesser foe in a rough spot, but that was a buy sign for me. Just like Michigan's second half against Penn State was a buy sign, this was a buy sign for the Wazoo. And if Wazoo, when they get going offensively, Oregon State's not going to have an answer defensively for Washington State if Washington State gets chucking the football around. So it's a matter of, can they score enough? Certainly lean over in this game. That, to me, might be the strongest bet. If you like Oregon State, it makes sense to put something on the over because I don't see them shutting down the Cougs.
The over might be a look. All right. Question coming in from Dustin H. Says, what does Teddy think about Ohio Bowling Green? This is Tuesday night action. Ohio opening up as 17.5-point favorites on the road, now 18.5. Rotation number 101, 102, Ohio Bowling Green tomorrow evening.
Yeah, my number came shorter. My number only came 16. And Ohio's another one of these teams. I mean, they've been a point spread disaster area. They've been ugly ATS. I think they're in Nebraska territory. They covered more. I think they've only covered one or two spreads all year. They've had a rough time in that regard. So I'm not in a rush to lay a price here with the Bobcats. And especially, again, they're coming off back-to-back devastating losses at home. To Miami O by a field goal and to Western Michigan by a field goal, and all their dreams are gone. They have 2-point spread coverage for the year. So Ohio's not a team I'm excited about this week laying this price. And Bowling Green is what Bowling Green is. They're a team that can lose 44-3 at Miami O last week. Ohio lost by 3 to Western Michigan. Bowling Green lost by 39. They're bottom feeders, and I don't want bottom feeders in November. So it's almost surely going to be a pass for me.
Next question comes in from Vincent Hawkins. Says, Teddy, do you think USC will cover against UCLA? Rotation number 165, 166. USC opening up as 13-point favorites. It's up to 14 at BetOnline and Heritage, now 13.5 everywhere else. What does USC do as 2 touchdown favorites here this weekend?
So I was wrong about both these teams this past Saturday, so take whatever I say with a big grain of salt. But I don't trust the Trojans as chalk, and I think the Bruins have a better game in them than the one we just saw. This is a Chip Kelly game. We're going to learn something about UCLA this week. And you talked about, there was a 1 fumble 6 that changed the whole game. But you talked about it when the Bruins were driving near the goal line and then a bad blitz and DRT was ugly. What was that? That was not a quarterback taking care of the football. But in theory, it's supposed to be a pretty strong Bruins bounce back spot against their rivals. My initial lean would have to be towards UCLA, even off that ugly loss last week. In part because I don't trust the USC, although USC just played as well as I've seen them play all year at Cal. They were good, and USC's A game. They certainly have top 20 talent. I'm debating as to whether I think they have top 10 talent, but USC's A game is good enough to beat anybody in the Pac-12 by 2 touchdowns, with the exception of Oregon. And yeah, you see, I love Mondays. I'm talking the stuff out on air. My initial lean is towards taking the points.
Yeah, get our money back. I don't know. Let's keep rolling, and we're going to stay out west. Prince of the City says, Jimmy the Ducks are on a roll. I said it against USC in Arizona, and I'm saying it again this week. Oregon minus 14.5-point favorites at Arizona State. Do they keep rolling?
So that's another one. What's that betting number? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. 151, 152. My fault.
Yeah, because there was, so my first lean in that game was, my number's Oregon 17 for what it's worth. So it's a little bit higher than the markets. I wouldn't talk you out of playing the Ducks. No way. And it's a lot of points. Arizona State's been headed in the wrong direction for some time. It's still a lot of points. this isn't, a quote unquote value play for me. But if I'm playing the game, Oregon has proven on both sides of the football to be bet on, and Arizona State's been declining on one side or the other in just about every game. When the offense works, the defense hasn't. When the defense has worked, the offense hasn't. And that's, Herman Edwards, I have to call that team a pretty big disappointment right now, considering what we thought they would be, coming out of non-conference play. But what's it, 4 straight losses, 4 straight non-covers. And again, Utah, UCLA, USC, Oregon State, solid competition, but not ridiculous competition. Have they lost by this margin at home? The one thing is that you don't see Arizona State losing by this margin at home very often. That's certainly a concern. But, I don't know that I'm excited about the Sun Devils here.
Next question coming in from Mark Unkafer. Duke versus Wake Forest, rotation number 127, 128. Wake Forest, 6.5-point home favorites. What do you feel about this line?
So that's another one that stood. My number came 7, and that it was sitting 6.5. Duke's not going to play a worse game than one they just had against Syracuse. That was as ugly as it gets for the Blue Devils. It's kind of embarrassing. And in theory, I kind of want Duke off an embarrassing loss. But again, now it's 4 straight losses for the Blue Devils. 5 in their last 6 games. The only win during that span came against Georgia Tech. It's pretty clear that Duke's not very good. And when you're wiped out, and they haven't scored, more than 17 points in a month. I'm not sure how Wake's going to respond. What we've seen the last 2 weeks, where they just, this team was in good form and in good shape and winning all the close games, and they get bombed by Virginia Tech and bombed even worse by Clemson. And both those are road games. It's their get-right spot against Duke and all of that. In theory, I guess I want the favorite here, but this is what I want to do. I need to understand why Duke was annihilated at home this last weekend before I get involved in the game. It's not one that I saw, and it's not anything that's anything that I read yesterday stood out to me. So this is let's do some work on this type of game. Initial lean towards the favorite. Right now, Duke's a little bit of a train wreck.
Christian Walsh says, Teddy, have you shared the other NCAA we're talking NCAA basketball, so I'm going to wait on that, Christian Walsh. I will copy and paste that. Okay, let's move on. Eddie Ola says, San Diego State now 1-9 to the under. Next up Saturday on the road at Hawaii. I don't have a total in front of me. You might have already seen one in Vegas here. San Diego State, Hawaii. Hawaii opening up as 1-point favorites now, 1.5 at some books. You have any feel on this spot?
I have a total, but I want you to guess it, because this is a hard total to think about,
So hard.
Just throw out a number. I'll make fun of you regardless of what it is.
52.
Oh my God, you nailed it. That's actually what the number is. I kid you not, dude. 52 is the total. That's the only book that has a posted total right now. Did you look that up, or did you?
No, I swear to God, I just fired it out.
That's beautiful, dude.
I just tried to go.
The total is 52.
I just tried to go in the middle of like 75 and 35, right? The two totals for the two teams.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. I'm not exactly going to play a whole lot of San Diego State games over the total. And I still don't understand what Hawaii. Whatever, the Rebels didn't show last week, but I thought that game was going to have 100 points and it had 4 touchdowns total between UNLV and Hawaii. I'm not playing San Diego State over 52, and I could only look at the Aztecs in that game. I think San Diego State's better than Hawaii, but I do worry a little bit about this. This is again, it's Hawaii's get-right spot in theory. I think this is their last. Let me look at something real quick. Because I do pay attention to those last home games and the senior nights and all that kind of crap. No, they have Army the next week, so it's not last home game or senior night or anything like that for the Rainbow Warriors. Lean Aztecs, they're underpriced, and if you're playing the Aztecs, you ain't playing the over.
Yeah, I like that. And DJ Big Boss says Hawaii's my pick. Says if San Diego State gets behind, there's no way they can catch up. No way they can catch up. So that's a very interesting spot right there. Okay.
See, I got to disagree with that because, again, San Diego State left 17 points off the board against Fresno. they could have easily won that game by twice the score that they did, but they fumbled in the red zone, and they had a touchdown overturn, and then they had missed a field goal. And those things tend to happen more to San Diego State than other teams. But against the Hawaii's caliber of defense, I would think that the Aztecs will be able to score. Just leave it at that.
We are running out of time here. Still questions coming in. Rod Zawacki says, can you ask Teddy about Boston College, Notre Dame, rotation number 161, 162, Notre Dame opening up at -19. There's a 19.5 on the board. Can Boston College stay within that number?
My number came 19. The market opened 19. It feels like Notre Dame will win the game by 19. This is not one that I had a strong initial lean on at all. The problem with BC, if they can't run, they can't win. And I'm not convinced they're going to be able to run against Notre Dame. If they can run, they're live to win the game, or at least give the Irish a real battle. So this might be one that's better for in-game wagering than pre-game wagering. And again, my number and the point spread is all right where it is. So it's not something that I had a strong initial lean on.
All right, a couple more questions from Rod. Rod wondering if you think that Ball State can take care of business. Rotation 117, 118. Ball State 3-point road favorites at Kent State.
So let me just get my number for this. 117, 118. My number was 2.5 on Ball State, Kent State. And I remember there was something that stood out to me on this one. Oh, yeah. This is what stood out to me. That Ball State hasn't won a game in like a month. And again, when you lose the way they did against Central Michigan, first they had Western, they took Western to the wire and lost that one. And then they had Central and lost that one. Right at the very end, despite the positive turnover margin. I worry about them going on the highway this week and bringing their A game. I know back-to-backs to get bowl eligible, and I know that Kent State's got to do the same thing. And I know that Kent State stole that game against Buffalo last week. I mean, we all saw it. It was an absolute thievery. When you recover the onside kick and you block a punt all in the last 5 minutes of the game, and you end up winning at the end. To do that twice, I don't expect them to do it, but they've been hanging tough in all of these games. So it's really not a game that I've got a strong Monday morning lead. Monday morning lean. So I wish you. I'll try to help you later in the week. Right now, I got nothing.
No worries. We'll keep rolling here. Eddie Orla letting us know the Bucks have moved up to 9-point favorites at Pinnacle. Very interesting. Paco Hill says Aztecs just held a Fresno team that averaged 35 points a game to 7 points. Huge implications in game 2. Enough to stay off the side and just hit the under. Very interesting from Paco Healy. Okay, we're going to put a bow on this with one final question from Rod Zawacki. He wants to know if you think that Louisville, rotation number 190, 192, Syracuse, Louisville 8-point favorites at home, gone up to 8.5 in a few books. Do you agree with the market move towards Louisville, and do you think that the supporting them would be a good look this weekend? So
Louisville's one that I felt like I should have been stronger with you guys last week, and I should have been stronger on it. And I pussyfooted my way out of a Louisville bet against NC State, and that was dumb. That being said, that was last week, and this is this week. So you can't let last week influence you. And Syracuse is coming off their best game of the year, and a game that I didn't understand and I didn't see coming. So before I lay with Louisville, I need to understand how Syracuse did that. That being said, Louisville has – all the talk about Satterfield coming into the season and, watch out for this coach and watch out for this team. I mean, they've lived up to and exceeded all those expectations. A team like that are teams you make money with. I don't have a whole lot of interest in stepping in front of Louisville this week. That said, my number only came 7, and I'm not convinced I'm going to be laying with Louisville either. Let's do a little work on the Syracuse side here and see what how the Orange did and how they're feeling right now after a big blowout win.
Very quickly, I wanted to make that the last game, but Matt Randall, who's so hot right now, the man is just on fire. He's loving Miami here against FIU. Miami opening up at 17.5-point favorites now, 18 or 18.5. He says, they beat FSU by 17. They beat Louisville by 25. Their quarterback is rolling. They will crush FIU. This is rotation number 209, 210, Miami, FIU. What do you think of Matt Randall being so bullish with Miami?
So my number's 18. I'll tell you what, the only way I would play is to lay. All right. I agree 100% with Matt Randall. Even though my number doesn't show it, there's a class difference between these two teams that is very real, and I don't see Miami looking past FIU. I understand it's big brother, little brother. Miami is rolling right now, and they are a one-way team. If I'm not betting on them, I'm not getting involved in the game.
Interesting. I think I might have to jump on that as well. Wow. There you have it. There's Teddy Covers on a Monday morning. I love having you on these. I love having you every day, but I love hearing your looks that you are already at the window with. That's Eastern Michigan plus 4.5, East Carolina minus 13.5, Illinois plus 14, Texas plus 5.5, San Jose State minus 4.5. And we think that he will get to the window with Marshall very soon. Also waiting for a number with Memphis and Nevada. In NBA, you are fading the New York Knicks. Teddy Covers is fading the Knicks. There's a lot of guys in the chat on Knicks first half. Teddy is backing the Cavaliers. And Monday night, no move yet on the Monday Nighter, which is a tricky game in Azteca Stadium. Teddy, thank you so much for joining us. Follow Teddy on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. He's a great follow. And Teddy, love having you start the week with us. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning.